Hi everyone, welcome back to the stream. So yes, today we discussed a movie by the name of "There's Something About Mary." It is a 1998 romantic comedy that stars Cameron Diaz as the title character Mary. Also stars Ben Stiller, along with some other cast that you can read on Wikipedia because I don't remember their names off the top of my head because I'm not reading Wikipedia right now. But anyway, Ben Stiller plays a character named Ted. Um, and basically the whole movie is about all these different men who are vying for Mary at the end, including Ted.
Right, right.
Uh, so yeah, this movie is definitely puts the comedy in romantic comedy. It's very absurd. I would say the comedy is very absurdist at times. Um, there are some interesting twists in the movie. Actually, there's probably like two interesting twists in the movie. One in the middle and then one near the end.
Yeah.
I felt like the absurdist moments were some of them pretty cringe, especially the one at the very beginning. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about with the whole prom situation.
Right.
Um, and then there's also the absurdist comedy bit with the interrogation of the police officers,
Yeah.
which um, is amusing to watch, I guess, out of context. But I think the progression of the plot with the first plot twist in the middle was pretty good with the whole like Tucker's character, or I think it's Norm. His name's Norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
His reveal, it was pretty interesting. I did enjoy that. And then of course there's another reveal at the end, like basically during the climax or like right before the climax of this movie, with Woogie, or like Dom,
Yeah.
who's Ted's friend. His reveal was, I think it was nice in the sense that like the movie was hinting at this character throughout, so it wasn't like a complete shock. But at the same time, it just felt over. At the end, there was just too many characters that felt over bloated. Like it peaked really quickly and then just got resolved like very quickly. Like the climax was very short, and so like a lot happened and then it just like dissolved.
Right.
Very quickly as well. And I think, I mean, I think it might have been nice to have Woogie been revealed maybe a little bit before the right, like not like right before the climax, but a little bit before, because his reveal is interesting in the sense that like it was hinted at in the whole movie, so it was a nice reveal. But like I think there could have been more, maybe even more, a little bit more build up between him and Ted, like him and Ted's conversation, because he kind of just like he was hinted at, but like there was not a lot of, like it was basically more of like a surprise because we didn't really see much of him.
Right.
As in the second act of the movie, second half of the movie, because Ted and Mary were like doing the thing. So like, yeah, I guess it might have been nice to see a little bit more with him just to build up his reveal, and also, it could have been. It also would have been amusing to see because also after Tucker's reveal to be the pizza delivery guy, him and Pat being the PI, who was the original
Right.
guy who kind of like vies for Mary before Ted follows. They kind of like work together almost. They're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like
Yeah.
we kind of like we're in the same team. We don't want Ted to be with Mary, right? Like we could have seen more of them because after this reveal, after Tucker's reveal, it like they kind of don't play much of a
Pass
role
over, yeah.
in
Yeah.
the second half of the movie, except for like this one scene where he's like they're trying to drug the dog, which is also amusing, one of the absurdist comedy bits. But I think there could have been like more of them trying to break up Mary and Ted. Like they're just like trying to do these like delinquent acts to try to break them up, but actually ends up making Ted and Mary like each other more. So like that's the like there's the irony in that. Almost like a cartoonish like Tom and Jerry like way of doing things. But I think I would have appreciated that a bit more just because like they were kind of brushed aside for the second act and then brought back for the climax. I think the ending was good. I liked the end. I mean, I liked the resolution, like the result of it with Ted choosing Mary. I mean, Mary choosing Ted. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like that made a lot of sense. I knew that like that was like that was what was going to happen. Like I didn't think that she was going to choose anyone else, but Um, one, you could talk about that a little bit off. I know you have a different opinion on that. Um, but overall, yeah, I mean, this movie is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. It's comedic. It's fun. It's absurd. Maybe some of the comedy then portrayed in this movie won't
Yeah.
necessarily apply to today's time, but like
Right.
it was still fun. But it just I think the ending, the build up to the climax could have maybe been better, and also like I think some of the comedic bits were a bit too absurd for me.
For
Um,
you? Oh, interesting.
I mean, especially that first one with the prom. Like I just didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was too. That was too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still funny. It was just like really absurd.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, we're probably saying the same thing, saying some of the same thing. Well, actually, I don't know. I feel like we both maybe had, maybe dislike this movie, but maybe for very different reasons in terms of the direction it went. Right? You think it can go this way, I think it this way, but we both thought it definitely needed to have a change of direction somehow. Um, I agree. I think this movie is, it's a comedy, and it's supposed to have, it does have, its fun parts, right? But there's, some small, I do like some of the twists that are happening. I thought that was, greatly, put in and written in. But just, yeah, some of the situations were definitely crazy, absurd, and just like, takes you out of it. And how it goes. Like, I just think like, the whole beginning portion, right, the high school portion is just like, first of all, it was like, crazy, like how they look, right, but at the same time, just like the whole, like what they're doing, it just, I mean, I guess this, it does, does set up the tone for the rest of the film, but it's just like when you're watching it, it just goes like, what is happening here, like there's so much like almost crazy random things happening. It's just, it makes me kind of like go like why am I watching this, but at the same time, like, oh yeah, I guess that's a bit amusing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of moments like that where it's just like, yeah, I guess it is fun, but at the same time, it's just like what the heck, like that whole investigation scene when he gets picked up and interrogated. It's just like, yeah, I like the back and forth going on there, like the writing, where one of the characters confused, and it just, they play off really great with each other.
Yeah.
But, and as you said before, it almost, it's like it could work as like an improv set. I do agree, but just like taking it in the context of the whole movie, it's just like so crazy. Like, yeah, this is a misunderstanding that could be resolved easily if one side does its job properly and tries to tell them what's happening. It's a bit crazy, like the situation, but like in that, like just taking this scene in isolation, I think it's a pretty good scene. But yeah, like the characters are all absurd. At least the rivals, right? Like Ted's supposed to be this angelic, great guy, except for some portions he's maybe not the greatest, but no one's perfect, right? But like Dom, not Dom, sorry, Pat is just this dastardly guy who's trying to trick Mary and says these things, which I think should have turned Mary off, but she kind of ignores it. But later she is seen to maybe acknowledge him as a jerk and maybe not seeing him as Mr. Perfect and maybe settling for him. So I guess there's that. There's Norm, and Tucker, his reveal, right? I thought just the way his introduction. He could have been someone who would have ended up with Mary at the end. Obviously, he turns out to be a fraud, which makes sense. But we kind of just got picked on that there's a plot hole with Tucker where he kind of seems to know the neighbor, the dog, and Mary beforehand, been over the place, but the dog has never barked at him when the dog usually barks at someone who's not great. So that's a bit of a plot hole, right? It's very convenient here. Kind of, yes, the twist is funny in that reveal. And it's not, I mean, yeah, it's a twist. It's not, I won't say it's my favorite twist just because the way that they're, if things fell into place, but that is one twist, right? I think the twist I really do like is at the end where it's revealed that Woogie was Ted's friend all along, and they kind of hinted throughout the film with the rashes. So I really enjoyed that actually when that happened. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty well done in terms of how they set it up. But I do agree that at that point there seems to be a lot of characters in the room, trying to vie for attention. I definitely think they try to set up Woogie as kind of like almost not the big bag, but definitely like someone who's like more villainous, right? But he's definitely seen at the end like not to be so like harmful, right? Because all he's doing is going after her shoes, right? But it definitely could have been mentioned, I think, beforehand a little bit here, there. But you do see the effects of what he had on Mary's life because he did set up, because of him, there's the restraining order. It's set up there, I think, a lot more subtly than than we thought. But that's why I do enjoy that kind of reveal. That yeah, it was him, and I kind of thought it was him, especially when the note happened. I was like, oh, wait, I haven't seen him in a while. He was pretty prominent, so I thought he was I think there's moments where it kind of makes sense that he could have or he was avoiding Mary. So it definitely I thought was a lot more put together. And that's why I enjoy that reveal. But I do agree that there might be a little bit too much people. Like there's 4 guys, it's 5. But Brett Favre comes in and it's like, oh yeah, I'm Mr. Perfect, which is the other thing, right? Because as you said, the ending. Like I thought, when Ben Stiller Ted is going out with his fake crying. I thought, I was wondering how that would all be resolved, but it kind of like, oh yeah, she just kind of, chooses him, leaves, Mr. Perfect behind, and yeah, you're right, like, he does kind of, or she says that he wasn't perfect in every single sense of the word, but I just, it was just for me a very, quick kind of rush turn, like no revelation. She just kind of comes down and says, I choose you, especially after the whole speech. So I was like, it didn't work, didn't really land for me, that kind of ending. And that's the other thing, like some of the pacing issues with this movie, especially you touched upon this, where Pat and Tucker are kind of dropped after once Ted and Mary start going out. I remember just watching that the montage and just wondering like, oh yeah, how did we get to this point? And just like, yeah, we never really fully overtly or resolve that issue between Pat and Mary. It just kind of like she kind of like dropped and forgot about him, which might have been the point, right? But it just seemed a little, again, more of the absurd moments and also quick pacing to get us to this point. But yeah, this movie is definitely interesting. That like, I think in parts you can maybe enjoy it, but then just taking it as a whole, it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that are happening, and then. Right, especially at the end, right? Like I did not expect at the end. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I knew the old guy was probably had a thing for Mary too, because it's like, oh yeah, everyone has the thing. There's something about Mary, right? But I just it ended like right at when he shot the narrator musician. It's just like, oh wow, like what the heck? Like it's just so unexpected ending, but yeah.
Yeah. I wonder. I wonder if there's something more to that, like with because he does sing and he does narrate. I didn't really catch the lyrics that he was singing.
Well, he was just talking about plot points in the movie, like, oh yeah, they're falling in love, and right. so he's like that narrator was just the transition from one scene to the next, right? So I mean, I think actually, now that I think about it, I think he was the transition between like Ted and Mary are happy together, blah blah blah. I think there is a transition, but he doesn't mention Pat. I think it would have been nice to have maybe him even sing about Pat, and that for me that would have maybe even resolved, right, this kind of like quickness, like that narrator could have been used at that point. Actually, now that I think about it,
right.
He does try to transition, and maybe he was just he never sings about him, but that narrator helps push the plot along.
Okay, maybe now that I think about, I'm thinking about it. Maybe like. The reason he got shot at the end was because it's like, oh, we don't need a narrator anymore because the
story's over. Yeah, it's over. Yeah, that's true.
Damn. Yeah. Very emphatic way to go to end the movie. Yeah. So if we're tying in with the whole absurdist thing, then I could see it. Also, another thing I just want to mention, just a couple of quick things I want to mention is one, there was like the whole like plot, kind of like almost like a plot hole with like Dom not using a PI or using trying to find Mary in the first place, even though like he suggests the PI to Ted, who then uses the PI and the PI finds Mary. So like, I feel like he could have, since he was obsessed over her before, and then sort of relapses into the obsession with her again. That like he didn't try and he didn't use that PI in the first place? Like, hello?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a I'm not very believable. And then another thing is watching these old comedies sort of brings about a nice little snapshot in history, like almost like a time capsule of like what comedy was like or at least mainstream comedy was like at that time,
Right.
and how you can like compare it to today and sort of like see how comedy has evolved
Mm-hmm.
and even a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
So that's sort of interesting to see.
Right.
Watching these like old comedy movies,
Yeah.
or older, but yeah. Anyway, let's do our ratings and then we'll finish it up. So I'm going to give this movie a 4.
A 4.
I don't necessarily recommend it. Yeah, unless you are looking for a very like kind of like a brain dead absurdist comedy movie.
Yeah.
Romantic comedy movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Cameron Diaz, you like Ben Stiller, why not? Sure.
Yeah.
But like in most cases, yeah, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think it was okay, but yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The rating.
Okay. I think I'd give it like a 4.5 actually. I think
Lord, what's going on? You're giving it a higher rating than I am?
I know it's crazy. And I think for me, what I mean, yeah, I thought you'd like it a lot better, Patrick. I just
maybe I don't know. Maybe I was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the comedy was absurd and just like it was just crazy, but for some reason I could still watch this movie. Like other comedies, I couldn't watch it. Right, I was like, oh no, I can't. For this one, I could watch it, and maybe it's just the writing was not all terrible, right? Just the situations were all like crazy and whatnot, but just like the dialogue and whatnot, I think worked well. And that's probably what engaged me. Like the story is important, yes, and this story is crazy, but it's still you can still follow along, even if it's like rushed and whatnot. But it's still there's still some crazy things which plot holes and whatnot. I don't know, it doesn't register with me, but I think what really got me to raise it to that like 0.5 was just like the ending reveal of Wookiee. I really like that reveal. I really like that reveal. So that kind of elevated to me, not much maybe to a 5 to where this is like an average film, right? But just like it's still a little bit cut above a lot of the movies I've seen before. So I do enjoy it. But just this movie's absurd. This is crazy. It has like so weird, ridiculous situations, which again, usually takes me out. But it's still, strangely enough, I can still follow along to it. So I mean, it's still not the greatest rating. It's below average for me, right? 4.5. But would I recommend this movie? I don't think I can. It's like if you're bored, you can watch this movie. But it's interesting because this movie is actually apparently critically.
It is critically,
and I don't know. Maybe it's just like a product of its time, or just like different writing. But I don't know. I just thought for myself, it's not a terrible movie, but I don't say it's like the best thing I've ever watched. I just remember like watching the whole high school scene. And I'm just like, why is this happening? The movie gets better after I think after the high school scene, definitely. But just
the high school scene was. I was put off by that, and I never recovered.
They left a bad taste, and
yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that concludes this week's discussion. Cheerio, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye.
Whenever you watch it, or if you watch this.
If you watch it. See ya.
Yeah.